Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest of the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today's guest is Nick Foy, and he's CEO over at Silverdale Technology. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Adam. It's great to be here.
So, Nick, this is, and I know you don't know this, but this is one of my favorite topics and struggles we're going to get into today. So, how to get your business off Excel spreadsheets and into the future. I got some stories to share, Nick, because let me tell you, we've been working on getting off those Excel spreadsheets for a long time, and I wish I would have known about Silverdale a long, long time ago. So, we'll get into that and more. But before we do, we'll start this episode the way that we start them all with what we like to call our Mission Matters Minute. So, Nick, at Mission Matters, our aim and our goal is to amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. That's what we do. Nick, what mission matters to you?
Well, our mission here at Silverdale is to give businesses of any size and scale access to the processes, tools, knowledge, experts, and apps that are going to grow and scale their business. That's what we do here. We've been doing it here for the last 5 years, and I have to say we do it pretty successfully.
So how did you fall in line with this business? Like, how were you introduced even to this concept of like making this transition? Like, how'd that happen?
Yeah, well, I'm no spring chicken, as you can tell. So I've been kind of in the world of work for over 30 years, and pretty much all of my 30 years worth of experience kind of goes into the creation of Silverdale. And my experience both in manufacturing and logistics and technology consulting, working at places like Amazon, Capgemini, etc. Really brought me to, Silverdale is the culmination of all of those years of experience all wrapped up into one company. It's kind of fun to see, like I always knew I was going to run my own company. I had no idea what it was going to be. I was one of those, didn't really know what I was going to do when I grew up, right? So I still don't know in reality. But, but really, when I wanted to create my own company, I looked at, hey, what am I good at? What do I enjoy doing? And Silverdale was born.
So I know when you were looking as entrepreneurs or even would-be entrepreneurs and starting a business, like there's always a challenge or a problem we're looking to solve. How did you fall in love with, and this is my words, not yours, how did you fall in love with this problem enough to know that it was going to be something that you were going to spend a significant amount of your time and resources and life energy into helping business owners solve?
Yeah, so I've always been a problem solver, right? Right from, when I left school and got my first job, I was always a problem solver. I got fired from my first job after 3 months, and was described as a, disruptive influence on the production line. That's what it said in the letter.
What'd you do? I can't let you off the hook on that one, Nick. I don't care.
So I used to work in a video recorder factory that really
Okay.
does now, right? VHS video recorder factory. And the factory had a U-shaped production line. I was on the end of the production line. And I realized after a few weeks of being there that my job was to actually fix errors that were happening elsewhere on the line, right? And my job was to catch it and fix it. And so once I figured this out, that's what I was actually doing, is that every time I'd find one of these issues, I'd shout across the production line to whoever made the mistake, hey, I've found another one of your mistakes. Hey, fixing another one of yours. Hey, I got one of yours here. I fixed it for you. Don't worry about it. And my team leader was like, hey, you got to stop shouting across the production line, right? You're causing absolute chaos. Just stop it, right?
Oh, my gosh.
To me, it made no sense to me. I was fixing someone else's mistake. And I was 16. I didn't know anything, right? And so anyway, I kept doing it. And eventually I got fired for being a disruptive influence on the production line. But that's been my entire career, quite frankly, from that day forward, is, seeing things that make absolutely no sense. So my next job, I got replaced by 2 fax machines. The next thing I got replaced by was, because my job was to run up and down the yard with production plans and production schedules. And eventually I said, hey, get 2 fax machines. You can do this all day without me being involved. And then, of course, the response was, oh, what are you going to do all day then? And so really that's been my career all the way through. And as I say, Silverdale is kind of a culmination of all of those things. I love technology. I love physical operations, whether it be warehousing, manufacturing, logistics, supply chain. I love helping other people. I've got one of these sets of glasses, I guess, that can see processes and inefficiency in processes right away. Uh,
Mm,
and I love working with diverse range of clients that we have to kind of solve very, very different problems, right?
mm. So I want to get to this concept of getting off the spreadsheet or the Google sheet. Like, when did that specific concept, when was that like, okay, there's a market here for me. This is something that I can sink my teeth into. Like, how'd that happen?
Well, first of all, you just do a quick Google search on it, right? There's so many studies being done.
Yeah.
That up to 90% of all Excel spreadsheets contain errors, right?
Mm,
And I used to be a very big Excel jockey. Okay, that was
mhm.
that. I loved Excel. I had my VLOOKUPs and my pivot lookups, and I had my macros, and I had my CSV files all going into. I used to do all that
Yeah.
magic that people are all around the world do every day. And I used to be really good at it, right? and
Mm,
but the reality was that when I started getting into the ERP world, I then realized that,
mm.
wait a minute, these ERP systems are way better at doing this stuff. And quite frankly, I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't have to do this anymore. Um,
Mm.
and just that inefficiency of exporting data in the right format and then being able
Yeah.
to put it back into Excel and do analysis on it, you start to realize this makes no sense, right? And so,
Mhm.
like back in my Amazon days, we ran a project called Project Mega, right?
Mm.
Mega stood for Make Excel Go Away, right? And that's kind of been a mantra of mine now, into Silverdale is, hey, let's find out what the client's using Excel for, right? Whether it's
Mhm.
Excel or Google Sheets, doesn't really matter. But the concept is the same. Like, why are you feeling the need to export this data from whatever system it is you're
Yeah.
using? Like, why do you have to do that, right? Because
Mm.
as soon as you hit that export button, the data's out of date, right? The next
Yeah.
sales order, the next delivery, the next piece of inventory, whatever it might be, your data's stale, right?
Mhm.
At that point. And, in today's world, even 5 or 10 minutes worth of data not being in there, you're going to be making some poor decisions.
Mm.
So, with 90% of Excel sheets having errors and this kind of, non-real time nature of it, quite
Yeah.
frankly, there are much better ways of dealing with your data these days, way better than there was even, 10 years ago.
Mm. What do you think is the hurdle for I'm trying to picture myself in your shoes. I go to this business, maybe they started it from scratch. I know you're working with businesses that are, anywhere from 20 to 50 employees, even into the hundreds of employees. So I'm thinking some of these businesses were small businesses. They started, they grew over time. They have their systems. Many of these systems are not going to be ERP. When they started their business, maybe this wasn't even viable for that size of business way back when there weren't other solutions like you can now. Like, what's the challenge when you go in there and you start like kind of getting into the weeds with the business owners? Like, what are some of the challenges there?
Well, first of all, when we talk about ERP, ERP it's a phrase that the ERP industry invented, I think, right? Quite
Hmm.
frankly, I don't think anyone who uses ERP doesn't call it ERP, right?
Yeah.
It's just the system or the business systems, whatever you want to call it, right?
Hmm.
So, and for a lot of people, that is Excel or it's Google Sheets or wherever it might be.
Hmm.
But to answer the specific, when do you know that it's the right time to take the
Hmm.
leap, right? Well, the answer is yesterday, right? You're already too late. Okay,
Yeah.
you should have done it already. If you're asking the question, you should have done it already.
Hmm.
That's kind of my experience. And I guess again, though, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, there just weren't that many great options for
Yeah.
small, medium-sized businesses. Like they're not going
You
to,
had to be enterprise back then. Am I off? Like
yeah.
you had to be enterprise, right? Get something custom built or
100%, right? You'll be spending hundreds of thousands minimum, if not
yeah.
millions, right,
Mm.
on implementing an SAP or an Oracle or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And these small, medium-sized businesses, there's no way they're going to make that
Mhm.
kind of investment, right? Over the last 20 years, really, and especially in the last 10, there's lots of great kind of web-based ERPs now out there.
Yeah.
We work with Odoo, that's our ERP of choice. Quite frankly, I haven't found a business or an industry that I can't fit into the Odoo system. That's why we've stuck with it for so long, and why
Mhm.
we continue to focus on it. But the reality is that these systems now are so accessible that
Mhm.
you're kind of bonkers not to do it, right?
Yeah.
Especially with the licensing models have all changed in the last few years as well. That
Mhm.
even as a solo entrepreneur, quite honestly, a single user license for less than $100 a month, like
Mm.
why wouldn't you, right? Get access
Mhm.
to all that technology and benefit. And if you get started in the right way, it's a hell of a lot easier than doing it later, right? We do this all the time with clients. They come to us and either they're on a different ERP, or they're coming from Excel, or they're coming from a failed implementation previous. And taking them through a very structured methodology is a very safe, predictable way of them doing it. Because
Mm.
there's another frightening statistic out there, unfortunately, that 75% of all ERP projects fail to meet their original objectives. Now,
Mm.
again, if you're a small, medium-sized business, and if you've got a 1 in 4 chance of being successful, like, where are you going to put your money? And it's not in an ERP project.
Yeah.
So that's been part of our mission at Silverdale, is really making this process much more predictable and reliable, so that people can actually make that investment and get the benefit.
Mm, that's interesting. And what does it look like to, and I know this is gonna change from business to business, size of business, industry, what kind of things they're currently using, Excel or Sheets for. But just, high level, if you can walk us through maybe some of the methodology, like what does it take to actually, get off of these Excel sheets or these Google Sheets and into something superior? Like what does that look like, that process?
Yeah. So again, this is the ERP industry has been very poor at
Mhm.
doing this. Quite frankly, the industry itself deals in some very modern software, but operates on some very old techniques,
Mm.
which, quite frankly, just don't work in today's world and don't work with today's technology or today's
Mhm.
workforce. Okay, so there used to be this old adage of build the system around your own processes, right? So
Yeah.
establish your processes first, and then massage the system around that so that it can adapt to you. Quite frankly, that was a stupid way to go. I don't know why the
Mm.
industry ever thought of that. I don't know why people still say it, quite frankly.
Yeah.
It's such a bad way of getting your ERP system up and running.
Mhm.
Our approach, again, has been all about predictability and repeatability, right? Um,
Mhm.
and so we've found over the last, 5 years at Silverdale, but over the last 30 years, the reality is that for most companies, most of your business processes
Mhm.
actually aren't that different from business to business. When you think about it, everyone buys stuff, stores stuff, makes
Mhm.
stuff, sells stuff, wants to send an invoice, pays their vendors, one that
Yeah.
gets a P&L and wants a balance sheet. Well, guess what? You're no different from the building next door, the business opposite you, the one the next town over, right?
Mhm.
And so what we've done at Silverdale, which is a bit different, is that we already have a library of all these business processes that work in Odoo, right? So we've already
Mhm.
done all that work, okay? So instead of coming to you and saying, hey, can you tell me how you do it and what you need, okay,
Mm.
which is the traditional approach, our
Yeah.
approach instead is to come to you and say, hey, here's how you can do this in standard Odoo plus some of our apps. Why can't you do it like this, okay?
Mm.
So as long as you as a business and your people are willing to bend and mold around the standard business processes that we
Mhm.
have, then you're going to have a much better experience and a much higher rate of success in taking away
Yeah.
all those risks. So part of our process, really, we don't take on every client that comes to us. Quite frankly, some
Mhm.
people just aren't ready. Okay,
Yeah.
they're still trying to figure out, what they sell, who they sell to. They're still trying to figure out
Mhm.
their own internal process. No ERP in the world
Yeah.
is going to compensate for a poor business process. Okay, so
Mhm.
if you're wanting to implement an ERP because you think it's going to fix all your business processes,
Yeah.
trust me, it ain't. It's going to make things worse. Okay,
Yeah.
because it's going to try and enforce a process it thinks is in place. So the first thing is get your business processes sorted, and if you're
Mhm.
working with us, use our business processes, right? Because we know they
Mm.
work. Okay, we've
Yeah.
tried and tested them. So we go through a very defined three phases people are working with us. Our first phase is discovery. That's where we
Mhm.
do a lot of our business process work. We identify gaps, we identify
Yeah.
mitigation strategies. And then the second phase is design. So that's when we're actually doing the work, doing all of our user training, our UAT, and
Mhm.
training our super users, getting our hardware on site, getting that all set up and ready to go. And then the third phase is deliver, where we actually do the transition, the go live. And then, very important,
Mm.
from day one onwards, of course, is the support and ongoing maintenance and making
Mm.
sure that things are sticking.
Yeah. And I want, what are those, this process side, when you say use our processes, like talk a little bit about that. Cause I feel that's kind of some of the hidden value to the company that you do choose to work with, whether it be Silverdale or otherwise, but talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've identified, we've actually got, I don't know how many it is now, but it's thousands now of
Yeah.
business processes that we have. We have what we call standard business processes. These are things that work out of the box, okay, without
Mhm.
any modification whatsoever.
Yeah.
And that business process will be something like, for example, will be, sales invoicing, for example, or
Mhm.
sales quotation, or bank reconciliation, or could be production, could be something like that, right?
Mhm.
So what we've done is we've structured this into what we call work streams, such as order to cash, purchase to pay. Some people will be very familiar with those kind of work streams. Underneath each
Mhm.
work stream, we then have processes, okay? And those processes, we have them in process maps. We have user documentation that goes with that. So training, FAQs, best practices. We have
Mhm.
training videos. We have all sorts of things around these business processes. So again, if you
Mhm.
came to me today and said, "Hey, I want to implement an ERP and I want to do great, fantastic." Like I've
Mm.
got everything available off the shelf to get you going, right?
Yeah.
Like we don't have to spend the first 3 months figuring out what your process is. As long as
Yep.
you're willing to adapt and mold around our process, right,
Mm.
then again you're going to have a very stable and very quick and very least risky
Mm.
implementation.
Yeah. You mentioned if someone doesn't have their processes, let's say kind of down for certain things to like that, ERP may not be the right fit. When have you found that other than that, maybe that it might not be the right fit? Are there any other scenarios? Just because I know there'll be a lot of people watching this and some of them have been thinking about this for a long time. And now this is kind of like front of mind again. Are there any other scenarios where you're like, that's probably not the best timing?
So, timing wise, I think the timing is right for everybody. Quite
Hmm.
honestly, right? It really comes down to whether you are ready to take this on, right? Do
Mm.
you have like, and when we say you have business process, we're not talking
Yeah.
about Visios or having things,
No, no, you're
over.
talking about figuring out your business model, right? Like what
Right.
you're gonna sell or how you're gonna monetize. You mean like things like that. I think that's what you meant. Am I off?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you can describe your business process, like
Yeah.
how does an order come in and how do you fulfill that order? If you
Mhm.
can describe it, then don't worry, right? We can
Yeah.
help you to figure that out, right? And figure out the detail. But what happens is, it happens, I would say rarely these days that we get those
Mhm.
calls from people who are like, I'm thinking about doing this, I'm thinking about doing that. Oh, great. You go think about it and come back when you've thought about it, right?
Yeah.
Uh, I'm not quite sure how I'm going to help you right now.
Yeah.
I
I'm
can
thinking
implement what you.
about starting a business, Nick, but if I do, then no.
Yeah,
Go.
well, you pick up the phone when you're ready. Right? I'm not sure I can help you with that, right?
Yeah.
So again, but again, we don't take on every client, and really, what that comes down to, though,
Mhm.
is your willingness to change your existing business processes to match the ones that we have, and
Mhm.
your willingness to work with me and my team to change your physical process as well if
Yeah.
necessary, right? Some people come to us and they're very rigid. I want the system to do this. I want it
Yeah.
doing this way.
I don't
And
wanna change. I don't wanna like, yeah, it's like, okay, but
I,
it's not the best and there's a better way possibly or something equivalent, then why not? I get it.
you'd be surprised, right?
Mm.
I get people who come to us and say, "Hey, I want to implement Odoo. Fantastic, great. Can
Yeah.
you make it look like this?" Well, hang on, that's QuickBooks. Like you want me to make Odoo look like QuickBooks? We'll use QuickBooks, right? Why are you
Yeah.
coming to me for, right?
Hmm.
Like, don't come to me with those sorts of things, because that's silly, right? You're just going to waste
Hmm.
my time, waste your time, waste all your money. I'm not going to do that to you. Um,
Yeah.
but and you'd be surprised at some of the things that people come up with. But again, what we say is that out of the box, Odoo is going to be 70% ready for your business. Okay. Don't
Mm.
expect it to be anywhere near 100%, but 70%. Because the system vanilla, when you first sign up, they don't know who you are, what your business is, right? So they can
Yeah.
only make it as so generic as possible, right? So it's about
Mhm.
70% ready out of the box. Over the last 5 years, we've built our Silverdale apps that sit on top of the core system and add additional
Mm.
functionality. That's based on our experience of working with clients, where everyone asks for the same thing. So guess what? We just build it and make it available, right? And we call
Mm.
that Silverdale app. That gets you
Mm.
from about 70% up to about 90%, right? And
Wow.
that last 10%, okay, is what you really need to focus on, okay? And it's that last 10%. And I would reckon about half of that 10%, so five points of that, right, is going to be
Mhm.
the things that really make you unique, right? So
Mm.
it's a unique way you make your product, or a unique way that you sell, or a unique way you support your customers, right?
Mhm.
And so identifying that 5%, the stuff that makes you, the stuff that
Yeah.
makes you stand out from your competition, that's where you want to do your customization. That's where you want to spend your money. Okay.
Mhm.
Not on the other, 90%, right? That quite frankly, you shouldn't care about, right? You'd be
Mhm.
surprised at how many business owners talk to me about their P&L. Oh, can I make it in, move this one here or move that? Like, why do you care about that? You don't sell P&Ls,
Yeah.
right? Go
Yeah.
Go figure out don't worry about how the P&L looks. Go figure out how you're going to sell more product, right? And make
Mhm.
your product better, right? Go figure that out. Go spend your time and energy there, right? And so,
Mm.
get yourself to about that kind of 90%, and then we can have a proper conversation about customization to get you to 95. And that
Mm.
last 5%, Adam, you're
Yeah.
never going to get there. Accept it, right? That you're
Yeah.
never going to get 100% in your ERP. There's always going to be something that you're
Yeah.
going to use Excel or Google Sheets for. There always is, okay? And if you try and make it perfect to get to 100%, you're going to disappear up your own backside quicker than you can say, Silverdale, because,
Mm.
you're just focused on all the wrong things now, okay?
Yeah.
You're letting perfection get in the way of great.
Yeah. No, I love it. And it makes perfect sense. And for those that, I guess, when we think about you're scaling a business and you're think about like as that business gets to different amounts of employees or otherwise, like this is one of the things that the sooner you have this in place or something like this in place, the easier it's going to be for you to scale that business. Because when you get to a certain point, like you're going to have a mess on your hands, depending on the business, depending on what you're doing, and whatever that point is, 50 employees, 100 employees, 150 employees, but whatever whatever your threshold is, maybe it's not employees, maybe it's quantity of orders, maybe it's other things.
Yeah.
I don't know. Could you talk on that a little bit, like from your experience on what this does when, like after what the road looks like after all of this stuff's in place? Because I feel like
Yeah.
we spent a decent amount of time on like how to do it, maybe some of the headaches involved with doing it, because everything takes a little bit of time, right? Everything takes a little bit of time and effort, and of course money, that's a given. But what does the other side look like, or what can it look like?
Yeah, so I'd say a couple of things to that. First thing I'd say is that when I'm working with our new clients who come on board with us,
Yeah.
I tell them that doing this kind of work, it's like going to the dentist, right? No one particularly likes it. It's going to cost you a lot of money,
Yeah.
right? But you'll always feel better afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay, and so that's how I tend to sell it. I'm not a salesman. You can probably
I
tell.
can see nobody says it's like going to the dentist. Your sales team is cringing right now, like, Nick, we got to get you another line. No, go ahead.
Yeah, no, Erin, who's my sales director, she's going to be listening to this. She's going to be like, "Oh my god, I've got to stop Nick getting on sales calls. This is not going to help." But I'm a fairly kind of open and honest
Yeah.
Scotsman, so but that's what it is, right? There's no point.
Mhm.
There's no point saying to someone that, "Hey, it's all going to be fine and dandy, and it's all
Yeah.
going to be, rainbows and flowers." It really isn't. Okay,
Mhm.
it's stressful, and there's going to be some arguments. There's going to be some tension. There's going to be some tears.
Yeah.
In sometimes, right? Because this kind of change, and this is another thing about our organizations, are they ready for this type of change, right?
Mm,
Are they robust enough? Are they have good communication channels? Do they have good employee engagement, right?
yeah.
These things really matter to have real good project success here. This is not, the reality is that technology is the technology.
Mhm.
70% out the box, get another 20% from our apps. They're already
Yeah.
built, right?
Yeah.
This is not a technology project, okay?
Mm.
This is a business
It's a great
process and
point. Mhm.
management project, right? And if you've got your IT team running
Mhm.
your ERP project, trust me, you're doing it wrong. Okay, this
Yeah.
is not an IT project. Okay, and it's so counterintuitive to some folks, but when you actually think about it, it's true, right?
Mhm.
This is all about business process and change management, right?
Yeah.
That's what this is about. So I've forgotten your question. I've been rambling now. I forgot what you asked. Yeah.
No, no, I think you got to it, which is like, what does the other side of it look like? Like the
Okay.
other side of the rainbow, like we're done, everything's implemented. Like now it's, we can move forward, right?
This is because I started talking about dentists. So the important thing to realize here as well, right, is that, again, try not to think of this as a project, okay? Like an
Mm.
ERP implementation is never really done, right?
Hmm.
Because your business isn't static, your products aren't static, your
Yeah.
clients aren't static, your markets aren't static, right? So an ERP project's never really done, okay? And
Hmm.
that can come as a bit of a surprise to people. We try and make that point that, look,
Hmm.
we're going to be with you for at least the next 20 years, right? And someone's
Mm.
like, oh, no, I want to do the project and go away, right? It's like, it doesn't really work like that, right?
Yeah.
You're always going to need something. There's always going to be that something. There's always maintenance. It's like having a car, right? It's
Hmm.
going to need maintenance. If you don't maintain it, on some sort of schedule, then guess what? It's going to schedule it for you, and it's going to be at the most
Mm.
inappropriate moment, right? In the most inappropriate way.
Yeah.
So, we try and make that point to folks that this is an ongoing thing. So for us, for example, go live day one, which is a key milestone in our projects. Um,
Hmm.
that reality is you're only halfway through. Okay, at that point, you're not done, right? You got a long way to go yet, right? We've got
Hmm.
early life support. We've got our health checks that we do for 3 weeks after go live to make sure everything's good. We've got those daily stand-ups, daily check-ins that we
Yeah.
do with clients. We continue with those. So even months after go live, right? We're still doing
Hmm.
daily check-ins to make sure, hey, everything's good. Because again, this is not a technology project. So now
Yeah.
we're looking at things like, what is the user adoption like? Okay.
Hmm.
Are we still using the things that you spent your hard-earned money and effort on, right? Are
Yeah.
those still in place? Or if people start reverting back, okay, to the old ways of doing things, right?
Mm.
And we've had that before, right? We've had clients who have implemented, and we all go, "Hey, great, wasn't it? Great job, everyone." Pat ourselves on the back. 3 months later, you go in and you go, well, I see no evidence what any of
Yeah.
the work that we did happened, right? And people drift, right? They drift back to the old ways of working. So, it's really important to keep that change management,
Mm.
that reinforcement going well beyond the go live date. It's so
Right.
critical. I tell you, most people don't get that. They think, oh, day one go live, and they celebrate. Like, there's nothing to celebrate on day one. Okay, you ain't nowhere near done yet.
Yeah. It's great. Well, Nick, this has been a lot of fun. I mean, I've learned a lot about what it looks like to up your business, to get off, to implement ERP, and also just your processes. 70% pretty good out of the box. Add another 20% for the Silverdale apps, and then really focus on that remaining 10% to tweak and to hone. And this is an ongoing thing that evolves with your business. So I learned a whole lot. Hope the audience did as well. I just have to ask, what's next? I mean, what's next for you? What's next for Silverdale?
Yeah, what's next for us really is implementing some new technology into our
Mm.
processes. So we've got a great database of tickets and tasks and projects and activities, and you name it. We've got a lot of data now, and we're really working now with some really cool AI tools
Yeah.
to really scale our business and really achieve our mission of democratizing ERP. And really, what that means is consolidating that knowledge into way more self-service tools
Mm.
to help even more businesses. So that's really what's on the cards for us.
Hmm. Fantastic. And if somebody's listening to this and they want to connect and they want to learn more about Silverdale, how do they do that?
Yeah, so the two best ways to doing that is to go to our website, which is silverdale.us. And in fact, if you go to silverdale.us/mission, you'll drop onto the page specific for this podcast. And of course, we're across all the socials on at Silverdale Tech is our handle across all the usual suspects.
Fantastic. And for everybody that's listening, just so you know, we'll put links to that into the show notes so that you can just click on the links and head right on over. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time with Mission Matters and you haven't done it yet, hit that subscribe or follow button. This is a daily show. Each and every day, we're bringing you new content, new ideas, and hopefully new knowledge and inspiration to help you along the way on your journey as well. So again, hit that subscribe or follow button. And Nick, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Adam. It's been fun.